Thank you, Tommy. With me, one of the hardest working commissioners, administrators in the entire country, Stu Haskell, not only is the commissioner of the Hockey East, but also of the North Atlantic Conference. Now, you're saying that doing two jobs is more difficult than doing one, obviously.
Well, it certainly is. Sometimes I think I have a screw loose for trying to do all of these things, but it's a lot of fun. We have 8 institutions in each league, Mike. Hockey East, of course, is a one-sport conference, ice hockey, though it's at the highest level played in the country. The North Atlantic Conference is also 8 institutions, and we have 20 sports in that league.
I feel it's my duty to give you the bad news. The North Atlantic champion, Northeastern, has to play North Carolina in the opening round of the NCAA basketball tournament.
That's the good news. What's the bad news?
Well, I had to bring you some news, but you have to feel good about Northeastern and going against North Carolina. There's some high profile, high visibility for that program.
Well, there's no question about it, and Kyle Fogel at Northeastern, I think, has done a wonderful job of bringing that team together. It really is a talented group of players, and I would not be at all surprised to see them perform very well in that contest. They played some tough teams. They played Indiana very close early in the season. They played a national schedule. They've been on the West Coast. I think they're well prepared for a game of that type, and certainly we all hope in New England that they'll fare very well.
And we hope so. How about this Hockey East conference? Going back 7 years when it started, I know folks today, fans today, probably said, how could we live without a conference like this and the quality of play we're getting? But when it started, how did it all come about?
Well, it came about because the Ivy League schools decided pretty much to have their own conference with some ground rules relative to admissions and other activities that were unique to those institutions, and that left, of course, some of the other schools without a conference to belong to. And what you have here today, those folks banded together and formed what is now Hockey East. Lou Lamoriello, who was the athletic director and coach at Providence College at the time, he's now the general manager, as you know, of the New Jersey Devils. He was really the architect of the conference, did a wonderful job of bringing it together, and really it's grown to be what I think is probably the strongest conference in the country in Division I ice hockey. We had this year in the official NCAA poll, which was the end of the season poll, and that's done by the NCAA staff, 5 teams in the top 12, the only conference to make that statement. Last year we were the only conference to have 2 teams in the Final Four. And in each of the last 2 years, the only conference to have 3 teams in the Final 8. So I think the quality really speaks for itself.
And some great individual players in this conference, too. I noticed 77 of the ECAC players involved in college hockey are on the list of NHL teams. 6 of them are property of the Boston Bruins. So it looks as if the Hockey East particularly has the attention of the NHL scouts.
Well, there's no question about it. I liken our game sometimes to college baseball games that are played at the highest level. I rarely go to a game, Mike, where I don't see scouts sitting up in the stands. And you know, if you go to a school like Miami in baseball or Southern Cal, you see scouts there frequently. So it's really at that level and is comparable to baseball in that regard.
Quick word on what bringing the tournament to Boston Garden has meant to the league. Have you gotten a feel yet as to how things are going this year?
Well, it's hard to say. With the economy the way it is, the attendance has not been quite what I hoped it would be, but I understand why. It's expensive to bring a family, you know, for a family situation to come into Boston for the weekend, and it requires, the expenditure of quite a few dollars. The people that live locally, of course, they only need to buy a ticket and maybe pay for parking, but I think the economy is having some effect on it. I'm not just sure how much. It's hard to say. We'll, obviously take a very good look at the situation at the end of the tournament when the balance sheet comes in from Steve Nasro and the Gadden staff, and then decide where to go from here.
And timing has a little bit to do with it, too, because I know some of the colleges involved in the tournament were off on spring break, and obviously the student body was unable to participate as much as they would have liked.
A very big factor. Boston College, Boston University, and Maine are all on vacation, and to play these games when the students are away is making life more difficult. There's no question about that. That was a good point on your part.